I've been involved in climate change for 20 years, trying to do something about it through business. I'm quite sad to report that we haven't solved the problem yet. Fortunately, a few years ago, I found a new hope: education. Let me explain. About 7 years ago, my wife and I watched John Hardy's TED Talk about the Green School in Bali. It changed our lives. We did something unusual. We packed up and moved our family, including our 2 young boys, to Bali to put them into an environment which was all about educating the green leaders of the future. And there, something happened. We got heart-washed. We were in a community that genuinely cared about the big issues of our world. And something happened to them too. Let me tell you a story. Meet Arthur. He's 6.5 years old. He's a student at Green School, and he happens to be my son. In grade 1, as the class was learning about animals, they realized that the bees have disappeared from the school because of a construction. Having learned about their importance, they've decided to do something about it and find a way to bring the bees back. They invited a high school student who had been passionate about bees and an entrepreneurial parent to give them a hand. Together, they looked for an appropriate place for the beehive, and they planted wildflowers to attract the bees. They decided to raise some money so they could actually buy a small bee colony. They wrote a story about Beep, the drone bee who had lost his family and his colony and had asked the grade 1 students to help him. They took lots of pictures. They drew some beautiful drawings. They wrote the actual story. And they calculated how much money they would have to make by publishing a little booklet and selling it on the farmer's market so that they could buy the beehive and the bees. So they did. They put together their story, they published a book, they sold it to parents and visitors at the farmer's market. If they hadn't, I wouldn't have this story to tell you. Now, apart from learning to read and write, apart from doing some numbers and how to tell a story, these children learned how to set a goal together and how to make something happen together. Imagine when at the end of the year, my then 7-year-old grabbed my hand, took me down to the river, and said, "Hey, Papa, look what we've done." Imagine how deeply that feeling of, I made a difference, got burned into these children's hearts. At that moment, I realized the power of education. I realized the opportunity to allow these children to build the intrinsic motivation to do something about their world, and also to gain the skills to be able to do so. I've also realized why we were not solving climate change. Awareness is not enough. We just don't have the intrinsic motivation to actually do something about it. It's just too far away. We also don't feel powerless. It's too big. It's too complex. But I believe that education can change all that. An education that's good for the children's and for the planet's future. When we had to move back to Budapest, there was no question about what we would do. So, see, part of my job as the head of strategy and board member of the Green School was to uncover what made that school special and what allowed it to make the impact that it had. We took these learnings, combined it with some global expertise on education, and set out to build a new kind of school, which we did. It's called the REAL School. And we have a clear mission. We want to inspire and empower the next generation to dream and build a beautiful world. We have a simple thesis. If children experience a sufficient number of times that they can actually make a difference to their world, then after a while, they will believe it. And if they experience it a few more times and they keep on learning a little bit more, then at one point they will actually have the skills to be able to do so. Now, let me share with you a little bit about how this works in practice. But But as I do that, please remember that this is an actual school, fully licensed, fully accredited, international school for 6 to 14-year-olds. Hi, children of Real School and crew, even though it might not feel like it. So this is how it works. First, we create a safe, sustainable, beautiful, and joyful place for learning. We are housed in a 100-plus-year-old industrial building, which is repurposed for a school. Our furniture is upcycled and handmade, and we are on our journey to zero carbon. We have taken the walls down to create large open spaces, because we believe that by taking the physical walls down, it actually helps taking down some of the mental walls. The walls between subjects, the walls between the school and the families, the school and its community and its environment, school and the city, because we don't only learn in the classroom. We serve delicious, healthy, plant-based food. It's all cooked in our plant-based canteen, conveniently called the Planteen, because we believe that food is the #1 human necessity. It's a major contributor to climate change and our environmental issues, and we have lost our touch with it completely. So that's the basic setting for the learning. And this is the environment in which our curriculum comes to life. Now, over the years, we have uncovered a deep insight. We've learned that how we teach is actually more important than what we intend to teach. We call our methodology the real way. Real means that we learn through authentic, real-life experiences and projects. We look for real issues and real situations for learning. We believe that the best way to learn and get prepared for the real world is to be involved in it now, to practice the mindsets and skills that we will need later on now, to have impact now. Now, REAL is also an acronym. It stands for Relevant, Entrepreneurial, Art-Filled Learning. Relevant means that the learners actually understand why they are learning something, how that relates to their lives, their interests, their future, their environment, their community. So when the children were learning about the Roman Empire, we were lucky because right next door to our school, as we are based in Aquincum, there was an excavation with some genuine, beautiful Roman artifacts coming to surface. You can imagine that taking home 2,000-year-old roof tiles that the museum didn't need anymore, or bones, actually makes this a really deeply felt experience. Now, entrepreneurial is the key, and it refers to the core mindset that we'd like to cultivate. It's about coming up with the ideas and solutions and actually making them happen. It's about not giving up. It's about trying again. And it's about dealing with uncertainty or even thriving on uncertainty. But most importantly, it's about finding solutions for problems of others. We all have lots of ideas, yet bringing our dreams to reality is where the real magic happens. Now, just to be clear, you don't have to be a start-upper to have an entrepreneurial mindset. Politicians, artists, historians, doctors can all be entrepreneurial. Now, to cultivate this mindset, we go through a process called Dream to Reality. We observe our environment, we experience things, and we find opportunities or problems to solve, and then we dream up a solution. Then we plan, and then we do. And this is where the magic happens again. Because instead of getting a grade on what we've done, we actually ask for feedback. We learn how to ask for feedback. We learn how to accept feedback and how to act on it, and then redo it. Because only by doing things at least twice will we actually improve on our outcome. Then we show off what we've done and the process to a relevant audience, and then reflect on it. Because I'm told by the educators that is the reflection point when the deep learning happens. Now, apart from developing these make things happen skills and mindsets, these projects, of course, always provide an opportunity to learn the subject knowledge that we need for our culture as we grow up. So this is, for example, a project we did in Obuda Island that combined poetry and science. The projects are filled with art. This is not only important because of creativity and for emotional and mental health and well-being, but also because in the world of artificial intelligence, we believe that our students and our children, as they grow up, will need to remain more human than ever. And art is a wonderful way of actually getting there. An important aspect of the real way is that students grow into ultimately owning their own learning. They increasingly make choices about where, how, what, and with whom to learn. This is to develop their what is commonly referred to as the lifelong learning skills. Now, we find this really important, not just because it's a values word today, but because as we get into a world that is increasingly complexly and changing faster and faster, our children will need to keep adapting to these changes faster and faster. Only by owning their own learning, understanding what they need to learn, is how they're going to get there. Now, on Wednesdays, we deep dive into nature because we will only protect what we love and because we will only love what touches us. Some Wednesdays are in the city because the city provides lots of learning opportunities and because it's also filled with sustainability challenges to be solved. Now, at the beginning of the talk, I mentioned that our ultimate goal is to build that intrinsic motivation for children to be able to do something about their world and to find joy in it. Now, key point to that is to keep getting feedback that they matter. What they do is important. 2 of our learners, 7-year-olds, wrote a letter to Sir David Attenborough for his birthday to share with him their concern for the animal world. Now, Sir David probably has done his job for the world, yet he took the effort and wrote a handwritten response to these children, telling them that if there were more people who cared about the environment as much as they did, the world would be a better place. Can you imagine the feeling that these children got from understanding that they really matter? Now, I believe that the most I can do for my children and for the planet is to put them into an environment where they find purpose and gain the skills to make their world beautiful. Because changing the world is a truly great way to spend your life. Thank you.